And we're back with another episode of Stories from the Shed. My name is Adam, and with me again this week, a man who got pulled over on the way here going 130 miles an hour. And when asked why he did it, he just said, "The liquor told me to." Jake, how you doing?
It wasn't 130, it was 95. But I appreciate the credit.
Well, you know, it seemed like it... you did get one time, I think you did get pulled over for flying like that, though, didn't you?
Yeah, for doing like 130.
Yeah,
yeah,
you did.
Yeah, that's where
So
you got that.
There was some kind of truth behind this intro.
Right, it just wasn't tonight.
How was your week since the last time we checked in?
It was long. I'm excited to be here. It's better than being at work, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's been a very long, draining week.
When it comes to my week, I'm going to say pass. And we got Jason back with us here.
How you doing?
Jason, how you doing, man?
Pretty
How was
good.
your week?
Probably better than next week. Kids are on vacation, so.
And you are das Uber driving.
Ugh. Yes.
Now, do people give you worse ratings if you have kids in the car?
I don't have any. Well, you can't do that.
Oh, okay.
I don't have any bad ratings yet, so.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Jason is one of the finest Uber drivers in the LA area.
5 stars for days.
5 stars for days. Throw the stars at him if you see him. What do we got going on tonight? What's up?
We're drinking beer.
We're drinking
hanging
beer.
out.
We're always drinking beer, and we're always hanging out. That's what we do in the shed. You know the weather's going to be great when, you know, these small breweries are coming out with these small summertime batch beers.
Yep, this is no exception. I tried to get one of these at the bar the other night, and you couldn't get them. They didn't have them on tap anymore.
Wasn't going to happen.
Nope, but you could get them in cans, and Adam managed to pick some up.
I did. I figured it out. Today we are having Road to Reggae, rather. This is a mountain lager by another great one by Baxter Brewing in Lewiston, Maine. This is definitely a 4.5-star beer for me. Flavor-wise, this is delicious. This is like summer in a can.
It reminds me of something that I used to drink.
Water?
Not Twisted Tea.
Mm-mm.
No, this is flavored. This is a very flavorful beer.
I'll figure it out. It's good, but I'll figure it out. It tastes familiar.
What are you thinking, man? How you rating this one?
I'm going to give it a 4.
A 4. So
I
this
like
is,
the label.
Yeah, man. I like it. Got the lion, got the crown. This is a delicious beer.
The crown.
Check it out. So, Jason, what brings you in today? What's our story? What do we got going on?
James Hicks, serial killer from right here in our backyard in Maine.
Yeah, not too far. A little bit north of here.
Yep. Well, northern Maine up in the county.
County.
Well, I think it's just before the county. This is in Penobscot County. I think
Right.
it mostly takes place up in the Newport area. But nonetheless,
That's
things
pretty far.
are a little different once you cross the Augusta-Waterville line as far as the state of Maine goes.
And a beautiful view of trees.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing but trees.
Yeah, and that's an area of the state where you'll have a small town separated by some trees and then another small town, and there's not really a lot in between.
There's no tolls beyond Augusta for a reason.
That's true. That's true because
Doesn't the highway turn into like 85 at some point too, the speed limit?
I don't know about 85, but it definitely goes up to 75 once you go north of Bangor.
Well,
Who
it's
cares? You go
75 all the way.
130.
You can,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, good point.
Jake, you follow no rules. You do what you want.
It's the Autobahn.
James Hicks
I plead
style.
the 5th.
So James Hicks, an interesting character here from Maine. Like we said, up in the wooded area of Maine, the natural Maine, the real Maine.
Yeah, he actually was born in 1951 up in the Etna area. His family was described as being poor. The father left when he was young, and he was often reported to display acts of cruelty towards animals, which is pretty common in these stories.
Yeah, I think we've seen that a lot of times. These serial killers, these violent type guys, displaying this kind of behavior at a young age, huh, Jake?
Yeah, we even had one guy that ate small animals, so
Yeah. What was that?
definitely talking about animal torture.
Yeah, Matt Hoffman. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the dude with the leaves.
So he kind of had, a tough childhood leading up to 1969 when he meets Jenny Sear, who is his future wife and unfortunate victim, on a school bus in Carmel. This is kind of in the western, heading towards the mountainous part of the state. 1970, James Hicks marries Jenny Sear, turning her to Jenny Sear Hicks.
So they were together for a year before they got married.
And they're pretty young, huh?
Yeah.
How old are they? I think they're early 20s, 21, 22.
He was born in 51, and that was 69. So, yeah, 18, 19.
Yeah, so they're kind of jumping at it here.
Yep.
They marry, and then they also, I believe they move in with Jenny's parents in the Carmel Etna area.
Yep. It's kind of a rough way to start your marriage, living with the in-laws.
I couldn't imagine. I love them, though. If they're listening, I love you. But, yeah, I couldn't imagine. So in 1971, Jimmy and Jenny have a daughter, Veronica. During this time, the couple struggles financially, and people describe the marriage as being strained. They've been known, for having a lot of arguments out in public and kind of having that kind of a relationship. Probably comes with the strain of poverty as well.
Right.
1973, Jimmy finishes senior year of high school and begins working at a local wood mill.
Oh, which one?
Yeah,
Do we
right.
know?
Take your pick.
Wait, so
Yeah,
he
that's
was
a good point.
22 when he graduated high school?
That could be.
Yeah,
That
didn't
could-
he finish? Yeah, his senior year was 22 years old.
22 years old and married with kids.
Well, we've all been there, right?
We've all been there. I mean, that's
22,
just.
finishing high school.
Hey, you know what?
Yeah.
Off to a great start, Jim. And in 73, Jimmy ends up working at the
At the wood mill.
Did we say that already?
Yes, you did.
God. In 74, the couple applies for divorce.
So they were together for 4 years before they applied for divorce. Which,
Yeah.
In the 70s, I guess it's probably becoming a little more common for divorce, but that's still kind of old-timey. They don't just divorce for no reason.
Yeah, but I mean, things did look up for them because earlier, I guess within that 4 years, Jimmy did. He ends up ending his work at the wood mill and begins working construction and joins a labor union. So
Right.
things must have been
Oh, nice secure job, labor union.
right. But
Right.
I mean, still, that doesn't take away from his.
Probably a lot more time away from the family and stuff as well.
You could assume, and
Yeah.
with that, probably kind of a. I can imagine you just kind of picture this guy having a bad attitude, especially as you've researched him more and you see how he is. So
Yeah.
more work sometimes with people equals bad attitude.
Right. Understandable.
So in October of 74, Jimmy and Jenny's son, Seth, is born. How many kids do they have? Or how many kids does Jimmy have at this point?
At this point,
At this point, I believe that's his first.
That's his first?
Yeah.
Okay.
yes, I think So let's keep track here. Let's see if we
Yeah,
can
right.
keep track of Jimmy's kids.
Right, and actually what's interesting is they had applied for the divorce, but they actually decided to cancel the divorce proceedings once they found out that Jenny was pregnant with Seth.
So time to reconcile and try to keep a family together. I
Right.
mean, that's the responsible thing to do.
Right.
Now, the next few years, from 1974 till about 1977, Jimmy works different jobs and constructions in the Bangor, Maine area, which
Yeah.
is probably the only real city once you get north of Augusta, Waterville.
That's where the University of Maine is. So.
Yes. So he's working between Bangor and Newport, kind of doing jobs along what's considered the present-day 95. So I would assume this was during the construction of all of that,
Yep.
which is obviously the major highway here.
Right, and that probably brought some jobs to the area for his construction and whatnot as well.
Sure. So it could have been a prosperous time for him, I'd imagine. Definitely a lot of work. The couple eventually ends up moving out of Jenny's parents' house, so you can see things are obviously looking up.
Right.
Jenny is employed as a kitchen worker in the Penobscot Nursing Home in Brewer, Maine, which is just outside of Bangor.
Right.
In 1977, James, his wife, and their two children, Veronica, that's right, they did have a daughter. You're right, Jake.
Okay.
There was
So they had
two.
two.
You're right, we have a daughter,
Okay.
and we have son Sean. So we got
Seth.
two.
Okay,
Seth.
and I'm sitting here all confused. Like, where is this other child? I thought he had a daughter. Anyway.
Sean.
We'll go with Sean.
We're going with Sean. At age 2, they were living in the T&N trailer park in Carmel.
Sounds like a dreamy place.
Sounds great. I'd prefer T&A trailer park myself. Jenny was known for being loving, and a responsible mother. Again, she was worked in the Penobscot
Nursing home.
and she's continued this career, so she's got something going on.
Well, I think she started out as a kitchen worker, and actually she started studying for a certification as a nurse's aide. So she was really trying to advance her career within that Brewer nursing home.
Jake, to me, it sounds like you got a young family that's forming here. Work is improving for both of them. They've got a couple of kids. What could be wrong?
No, good question.
Right?
I mean,
Good question.
he was doing better with work because they were doing so bad that they were living in her parents' house, and he started doing better with work. She started moving up in her job. She was
Right.
actually described by her coworkers as enthusiastic about the prospects of furthering her career. So, things were definitely looking up for them as a family and during this pretty difficult time.
Yeah. So, but as difficult as it is to be, a couple and having children, it can be very hard and challenging to continue to work. So what they end up doing is Jenny, in order to continue working, asked Susan Matley, a 15-year-old girl from Massachusetts, to move in with them and take care of their children. Now, I don't know how they've met.
Thank you. I was going to ask that question.
I
Where
think
did they
she's
find
a
this
friend
girl?
of the family, from what I understand, Jason. I couldn't find
okay.
anything on
I
it.
couldn't find anything either, and I was wondering that too. I mean,
I did look for that, though. There wasn't really much on it.
yeah, it doesn't really.
But somehow they must have known her because her family entrusted her to say, yeah, you know what, go up to Maine and,
Right.
Make some money
Yeah.
watching these kids while this family can continue to work.
Yeah.
So like any other young person that wants to take advantage of an opportunity, she moves from Massachusetts to Maine to take care of the children.
Yep.
And she becomes the Hicks live-in babysitter in June 1977.
Yeah, it actually was going pretty well from what they said as far as her watching the kids, so both of them can work until in July of '77. I guess James made sexual advances towards the babysitter.
You
Towards
think
a 15-year-old. Okay, creep.
Yeah, I know, right? What the fuck? So, I mean, that's when things can kind of... It doesn't surprise me now in hindsight from reading about him.
You're right. And she actually, I think she told James's wife the next day.
Really? Do you have anything on that? They didn't kick her out or do anything like that? You know how that could go.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'd call that victim blaming, but
Right.
probably, I'm sure Jenny didn't really want James around her, kind of with just the two of them.
Not
So
after that.
Now,
God, no.
on the following day of July 18th, Jenny, along with Veronica, Sean, and Susan, went to visit Jenny's sister, Denise Clark. Now, they were very close,
Right.
from what I understand.
Yeah.
Veronica asked if she could stay with her aunt during Miss Clark's vacation. Jenny and Miss Clark agreed in that it would be fine for Veronica to spend the night. So that's always great. I'm looking for babysitters, too. Jenny decides that she would bring some of Veronica's clothes with her the next day, kind of get her washed up, get her ready to go. Jenny also told her sister that she would drive her to the dentist when she arrived with Veronica's belongings.
Right. So she must have had a dentist appointment that next day.
So that kind of makes sense, kind of take care of everything together.
Yeah.
Before leaving her sisters, Jenny declares her dissatisfaction with James. In fact, I believe that night she told her that they were getting a divorce and she was going to be moving out, and that was going to be that with the relationship.
I think he was actually going to move out. And she said that if for some reason he didn't leave, then she would move out. But I think the original plan was for him to leave.
But she also said that she would never leave him with the children.
Right.
So that's kind of a key note there.
Yeah.
Now, what happened that same day?
On that same day, Jenny agreed to bake a cake for Linda Elston, who is a close friend to her, and she agreed to deliver it to her the next day. So some point after that, making the commitments to bake the cake, Jenny, James, Sean, and Susan had dinner together in their trailer.
Okay, so these are pretty busy people, a lot
Right.
going on.
And during that dinner, James Hicks actually apparently sensed that Jenny was upset over something, but he was uncertain whether Susan had mentioned anything to Jenny about his sexual advances. So you could tell it's like the elephant in the room.
There must have been such an uncomfortable feeling, I could imagine, in there.
Yeah.
You know, just that sense of panic that's...
Yeah, and I guess he actually asked Jenny, and she said that they would discuss things later. So James moved in to kiss his wife at that point, but she wouldn't let him. So at that point, he probably had a pretty good idea what was going on. But
I guess he started pitching a fit. He was chucking dishes into the sink and getting loud, and this was typical behavior for Jimmy Hicks.
Yeah, and at that point, the babysitter left to go on a date for the evening, and actually didn't return until 4 a.m. So
what kind of a date would a 15-year-old be on that ended around 4 a.m.? What do you think, Jake? What were you doing?
The one where they don't want to go home because they don't know if they're going to wake up in the morning.
Yeah, right.
You know?
That's a long time to be dry humping, but anyway.
That is true. That is very true.
But anyway, so this makes me wonder how the babysitter situation was as far as were they parenting her, or was she kind of in control of herself in this?
I wouldn't surprise me if it was Jimmy's idea. Yeah, let's get some 15-year-old girl to move in with us.
Of course it was.
This is great.
Yeah.
Let's do this. I'm sure that had something to do with it.
But I mean, I wonder if she, as long as she was reporting for work, she could do what she wanted, or if they were parental figures during this time. Because
it doesn't sound it.
Right. Did they let her leave till 4 a.m. or did she just?
You're right.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. In my mind, when I kind of went over this story, I envisioned it as like she could come and go as she pleased.
Right.
Yeah, you're 15. You might as well be 25,
right.
35. Go have a fucking good time.
Right.
And so long as you're here for the kids.
Right. Need you to babysit tomorrow at 3, so be here.
Right,
have
right.
A good one.
Now, when she returned home on the early hours of July 19th, neighbor of the Hickses heard Jenny Hicks screaming.
Yeah, this was before the babysitter
came home.
Yeah.
Of course, a man was swearing. They're in a mobile home. They're very close to each other, so you can almost hear everything. You could even hear a small child crying.
Right.
The neighbor specifically recalled that Jenny was screaming, "Oh, stop, Jimmy, please stop." Almost sounds of a fight. A physical kind of thing going on is kind of how I get that.
Or role play.
Or role play. Please stop, you're going to kill me. I mean, all this stuff is coming out of the house. Then all of a sudden, like the flick of a light switch, Jake.
All the noise disappeared. Yeah, supposedly soon after that, neighbors heard noises that resembled the sound of wood being chopped or sawed up.
Interesting.
Maybe a chainsaw? No, not a chainsaw. What do they call those? Skill saw? I don't know.
How would you hear that through?
Have you seen what trailers are made of now, let alone in the 70s?
Oh, I know, but still, I mean, how would I still doubt hearing something like that through the walls. Somebody cutting something.
Yeah, and trailer parks usually aren't overly quiet either. I mean, cars driving by.
True, but at 4 a.m. or whatever it was.
Well, Jake, why don't you take us to 4 a.m. when the babysitter
never stop, Jake.
Makes it back to the house? Because now there was some arguing and fighting in the early hours of the morning, and now we have the babysitter, Susan Matley, returning back.
Yeah, so she gets back to the house, and she immediately feels like something's wrong. She gets into the living room, and she finds James sitting in a chair watching TV, and Jenny's lying on the love seat with her head down on its wooden arm. Her face is covered with her hair, and Susan noted that her body was in a really awkward position to be sleeping. James told Susan that Jenny was asleep, but Susan feared that Jenny was not well. She remembered seeing Jenny wearing a blue fuzzy bathrobe at that time. She went to her room and got into bed. She heard slippers scuffing around on the floor, and then heard the trailer door open.
Right.
And here's the thing. James might have been sitting there watching TV when she walked in, but there was nothing on the TV.
Right. That's what I read, is that when she walked in, she described how Susan was, but James was just blankly staring at the TV, kind of in a trance. And when she went and laid down before she heard the slippers scuffing, James actually went in her room and kind of stood over her bed for a minute.
He was probably a few stowaway IPAs deep, Jake.
Yeah, probably. Did they have those in 70 whatever?
So
no, these are new and they're delicious, just like the Reggae's. Got to get them.
But yeah, so Susan, she said that after James was standing there, he kind of noticed that she was sleeping, which she was faking. But
yeah,
and that's when he left the room, and she heard the trailer door opening and the slipper scuffing across the floor. So
sounded like he was dragging something. She could hear
Yep.
James Hicks getting to work.
Could you imagine what must have been going through her head when the day before this guy makes sexual advances? She just comes home, his wife is dead, and he walks into her bedroom and stands over her bed. That's terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so the next day on July 19th, sometime before 6 a.m., James actually called Linda Elston, who she was supposed to be baking the cake for, and asked if Jenny was with her at that time. Mrs. Elston said she'd not seen Jenny that morning, which she was expected to. So James mentioned that he had attempted to reach Jenny at the trailer, but there was no answer, and he needed to tell her where to find the keys to the truck.
That's interesting. It's an early time to be calling. Hey, let's bake an early morning cake.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
Before 6 a.m.?
Yeah.
Right.
Almost like he's building up that alibi.
Yeah, it's
Right.
exactly what
That's
he's
exactly
doing.
what that sounds like to me.
Or, I have no idea where she could have went. So Susan, the babysitter, says that she never even heard the phone ringing and awoke only when she heard baby Sean crying from the doorway of his parents' room. She also said that she looked in the trailer for Jenny, but Jenny was gone, but her glasses and her purse were right on the kitchen table, and the truck was still parked in the driveway, which is kind of weird because James normally drove the truck to work rather than the car that they owned.
And it's unusual for her to leave her glasses behind because from what I understand, she doesn't see well without them. So
Right,
if you're
right.
going to take off, even to do a simple task, if you don't see well without your glasses, you're still definitely going to take them with you.
Right, and I think she said she even found the second pair of glasses in a dresser drawer, and that's how she kind of came to the realization that Jenny didn't have any of her glasses. She wasn't missing any of her clothes other than that blue fuzzy robe that she had seen her in. So it's kind of just red flags that Susan is noticing just around the house.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So she waits around, but then James ends up returning from work sometime between 3:30 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Now he asks Susan where Jenny was, in which Susan replies that she hadn't seen Jenny all day. Again, still going along with this story. Susan told him that Jenny had left without her glasses and that she expressed no great concern and stated that Jenny was only needed her glasses for reading, which was not the case.
Right.
She was blind as a bat without them, Jake.
Right. She had to have them for driving.
Yeah, right. So, she didn't take a vehicle.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's yeah. Still odd.
Absolutely. He then left again
for about an hour and a half, I think.
Yeah, short leave.
Yeah.
And when he came back, he went to tell Susan that she and Sean were going to his mother's house.
Yeah. Apparently, he had asked previously. Apparently, he had previously stopped at Jenny's parents' house to ask if they had seen Jenny. So he's asking everybody that he can to kind of, portray this picture of a concerned husband.
Right. Exactly.
Now, he explained to them that she had left without taking the kids, without her glasses. Everything seems very unusual.
The glasses keep coming up.
They keep coming up. I mean, but you know how some families are. Oh, you know how it is. If you don't have your glasses, you got to have your glasses. This was just, and this is probably a staple for him as far as building his alibi. This is really weird. This is really weird. She's just up and vanished.
Right, and I guess when he got to his mother's house, he actually left Susan and the baby Sean, I think, with his mother, and he went off with his brother George for about 2 hours. So, my opinion is during that time they were probably finishing taking care of the body.
Yeah, that would surprise me.
Right.
So where is the daughter at this point? Veronica.
Was she with the aunt for the week?
Yes,
that's right.
That's
Okay.
right. She's with the aunt now. Now the little boy is
Right,
with the other.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes. No, when James, Susan, and Sean went back to the mobile home, later that evening, Susan noted that a light had been turned on and Jenny's glasses had been taken. So he's moving things around, making things look a certain way.
Yep.
James commented that Jenny must have been at the trailer while they were gone and she had taken her glasses then.
Right, because the thing is when he got home and she was like, "Oh, I haven't seen Jenny all day, but her glasses are still here," he probably went, "Fuck, I got to get rid of those."
I could imagine.
Glasses.
I could imagine.
Yeah.
Now, Jake, what goes on shortly thereafter?
So about 4 days later, after her appearance, Jenny's father notices James is scratching his arms. James claims he had contracted poison ivy at work. According to James' supervisor at the Woodland site, it was highly unlikely anyone could come into contact with poison ivy on that job.
So there was poison ivy where he buried the body.
Yeah, no, still, I mean, that's whatever. People get poison ivy.
Right.
I mean, so
Yes,
far,
they do.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Now, approximately 1 week after Jenny Hicks' disappearance, Linda Dunifer, who had known Jenny for a couple of months, receives a telephone call from a woman who identifies herself as Jenny. That's kind of weird, huh?
That's very weird.
Yeah, that's very weird.
Yeah, now the woman asked Miss Dunifer to convey a message to James that he was to bring her clothes and that he knew where to find her. So that's kind of weird. It's almost like, did he put somebody on to making this phone call for him?
Right.
Huh.
I mean, it's
strange.
I mean, she'd only known her for a couple months, but do you think that Linda would know what Jenny's voice sounded like on the phone?
That's true. That's probably why he would have picked her to call for this. But the caller refuses to divulge her whereabouts and simply repeats the same message. So it's just, this is what I got for you.
Right.
Now, Miss Dunifer believes that the woman became irate and could not end the conversation fast enough.
Right.
So it's almost,
He probably put somebody up to making the call. Keep it short and sweet because, the longer it gets, the harder it's going to be to fake the facade, I guess.
and
So-
discontinue the call.
Right. Short, sweet, to the point, hang up.
Now, Miss Dunifer never gave the message to James.
Of course not. Who
course
would want
not.
to be near him?
Yes, right. But instead described the strange call to Linda Olson, the friend, which she was there supposed to be baking the cake for.
Right.
Similarly, the same woman never mentions the call to James. I think people were very uncomfortable with him.
Right.
James, however, sometimes thereafter, he *69 or *769, I guess that's what it was back then, went to see Linda Olson, had asked her about a call. So this was on his records. I think this came up later on in time. So he's doing a real good job of painting a picture of she's taken off.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm getting from this.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, I believe the babysitter ends up moving out.
Yeah, she actually takes off and goes to Ohio. So
And she was terrified.
Of course she was. I mean,
because she kind of knows what happened.
Right, and she probably thought that she was next. I mean, she basically is the only witness to this whole situation. So.
And from what I understand, he had kept her kind of locked in, not so much locked in the trailer, but he either left her in the trailer with the two kids, or if he was there, he kept an eye on her to make sure she wasn't going anywhere.
Right. Yeah, she wasn't really allowed to leave the house, if I remember correctly.
If people were to ask about his wife or about anything like that, he was there to make sure she didn't say anything she wasn't supposed to say, just by just intimidation of being there.
Right. And from what I had read too, he was kind of telling anybody that had questions about Jenny that she was been dealing with depression and stuff like that, kind of almost sending it down the suicide or the disappearance path on her own. Like
right. Mm-hmm. So she ends up making it to safety in Ohio, but she's not out of this. She's not out of the story altogether.
Yeah.
A couple of months after Jenny was last seen, James and his brother George and Wayne Olson were. I wonder if this is a relative of.
I bet you it was Linda's husband.
Or some kind of relative. Yeah, I would imagine. Was riding in a vehicle in Bangor when suddenly James, who was driving, began to pursue a car. This must have been kind of crazy. And that he passed them, past the car traveling at the opposite direction. So I wonder if he must have turned around, went after him. Now, according to Olson, James had exclaimed that he had seen Jenny in the other car. Gotta go get my lady.
Yeah.
Turns around going after her. James recalled that it was either his brother Olson or
his brother or
Elson, who had seen Jenny.
Right.
So that's how he kind of puts a spin on it when questioned about that event.
Yeah, they're probably driving in a Ford Escort and they see like a Corvette going the other way. There she was. We'll never catch that car.
Good point.
Now, Jake, there's a few other occasions that he's kind of painting a picture, I think.
Yeah, before we go that far, can we take a break?
Yeah, probably a good time for a beer break.
All right, sounds good.
Cracking another one. Ready for part 2.
Got some spray on your computer screen there.
That's all right. That's how you know it's good.
Oh,
fresh.
Look what you did.
So I guess basically for the next couple of years, he's painting this picture of her taking off. The police don't really give a shit because she's an adult who has the right to take off to Florida or to New Hampshire or to wherever the hell she wants to go.
Yeah, right.
But the family isn't buying that story, Jake.
No.
The family says, this is not like her. Something happened. And the mother really knows, the victim's mother really knows Jimmy well. And I think by watching her talk and all that,
she's pretty confident it was him.
Yeah, she's like, you know what? You're the kind of asshole that would do something to somebody. Yeah. So I got an eye on you for that.
Yeah.
But as this is going on, we'll fast forward a bit to 1982. Now, James Hicks, while at a bar in Newport at the Gateway Lounge, he kind of smoozes up to a young lady named Jacqueline Towers. Geraldine Towers. Jacqueline. I was thinking it was something I was reading earlier, but Geraldine Towers, you're correct. Yeah, no. Offers to buy her a few drinks.
Yep.
Classic move, huh? Jason, you've used that a couple times.
Oh, every time.
Every time, and it's worked for you, too.
No. So I guess he smoozes up to her in the bar and kind of is lingering around her in the bar throughout the course of the night. And at some point, they end up leaving at the same time. Anybody who was a witness in the bar assumes that they left together, although nobody saw them get in the same car or anything like that.
People did see him, working it hard, and it's obvious he was trying to take her back home. So people just kind of put that together.
Even people who were close to her said that she lacked fear of people, and she probably wouldn't have hesitated to go hang out with them or do whatever with them. So
now, after leaving the Gateway Lounge, Hicks sees Towers walking out of a convenience store.
Okay.
So then she wouldn't have gotten in his car.
Right. That I guess that was a different witness who said that.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I said Hicks, didn't I?
Yeah.
No, somebody does see Hicks and Towers together. I'm sorry.
Okay.
They were getting out of a convenience store, so they are seen kind of going around doing different things.
Yeah. And I guess he offered to take her to the Newport swimming hole or something like that.
Yeah. So there was, and this is stuff that others had heard them discussing.
Yeah.
So people put it together. They're going to go do some stuff and this and that. But a few days later, Towers, the mother of 3 children, does not return.
Right, which is completely
out of her character.
Uncharacteristic of her, yeah.
No fear of people, but definitely somebody that wasn't going to run away from her kids.
Right. And her family handled it a little bit differently than Julie's family. Geraldine's mother, June Tibbetts, actually contacts the Newport Police Department stating that her daughter had not been seen since October 16th.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is good. I mean, this guy, he's just doing all kinds of crazy shit.
Yeah.
So and I think probably at this time people have an idea for who he is because this is small town.
Oh yeah.
Maine. So I'm sure there's like rumor and gossip like
Maine.
Last seen with him and guess what happened to his wife.
Yeah,
Everyone
don't
knows
be
each
alone
other.
with them.
Yeah. Officers respond to the call after interviewing Geraldine's mother and stepfather. The officer discovers that Towers had been known for leaving unexpectedly. This isn't looking good for
That's the
an
worst thing
investigation.
that can happen to somebody who disappears. Yeah. The minute you run away once, you'll never be investigated seriously.
Yeah,
again.
she would often run away and not tell anybody where she was going.
Yeah.
But her family, they put out local runaway ads in newspapers seeking information about her whereabouts, nonetheless, because they think there's something up with her.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But the police sound like they're not really doing a whole lot of looking into things, Jake.
No, as with a lot of cases we see, at least.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2 days after she disappears, Corporal Eugene Robinson joins Officer Ricker in the investigation. Nathan Small of Skowhegan, I'm assuming Skowhegan police officer,
Yes.
responds to Towers' parents' newspaper ad and claims to have a special ability of finding missed people.
He would be a psychic.
A psychic.
Oh, okay.
A psychic, yeah. I love psychics. But they've come up a few times in this too.
Yeah.
I don't think anything ever came of that though.
Well, Nathan Small, he claimed that Towers was dead and that her body was floating in a river somewhere.
Yeah, but I mean, it's either she's dead or she ran away. I mean, that's what these psychics always say.
Right, and the police took it seriously. They did a thorough search of the area, took a plane over the river and whatnot, and at that time, no body was found.
Well, I mean, they have nothing to go on.
Nope.
So go on the word of a psychic.
Yeah. Hey, it's valuable.
It's worth a shot.
Hey, when you got nothing, take whatever you got. Now, in mid-November of 1982, Officer Robinson receives an anonymous phone message claiming Gary Hicks, whoever this is, was the last person seen leaving with Towers at the bar. Now, Gary Hicks, maybe heard wrong, but somebody Hicks.
Yeah.
After interviewing bar patrons, Robinson discovers the individual was James Hicks. So he's able to...
he's probably pretty well known at that bar.
I would imagine he sounds like a frequent flyer. Huh, Jake? Frequent flyer.
I wouldn't know. I didn't go to the bar in 1982.
Now, in mid-November of 82, Officer Robinson questions Jimmy Hicks at the Hicks home in Etna, Maine. Probably just a friendly, hey, just checking up on things. But at that time, Hicks denies being at the bar in October. On October 16th, and says he knows nothing about Geraldine's disappearance.
Right, and from what I read during this interview, Officer Robin meets with a bartender after he heard the rumors, and the bartender recalled seeing Hicks leave with Towers on the night of the 16th. So he's basically calling bullshit on that. But what I read, Officer Robinson, when he was questioning James Hicks about this, he got really defensive, and he made a comment, something to the effect of like, you guys only think I did this because you think I murdered my first wife.
Yeah. And you know why? I bet you because after she disappeared, a lot of people did not let up.
No, of course not.
So, I mean, he's real quick to go right up on the defensive with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. But the cop actually didn't even know that.
That's right.
Anything was involved with his wife.
Yeah, so then he starts looking into that. And I think at this time, Hicks has a living girlfriend.
Yeah.
And she kind of gets involved in this.
Yeah, when he's questioning Hicks and he's getting kind of riled up, the girlfriend basically shuts shit down by basically saying, get a lawyer, and that pretty much ends everything. So
yeah, I wonder if she had anything to do with him after that.
Yeah. If you ever commit a murder, please ask for a lawyer immediately.
Yeah, right. So with that, what do they end up doing? They end up arresting him.
Yeah,
I
they end
believe.
up arresting him after they kind of look into his wife's disappearance more. The babysitter actually comes back and testifies against him in court and everything.
Yeah, so what ends up happening is she comes up from Ohio,
Yeah.
and she starts giving up some information about what he had done. A lot of his stitch work that he's done as far as stitching the story together is starting to come apart at the seams.
Right, because she, I mean, the upside of keeping her there for 2 weeks is that she didn't go blab to anybody. The downside is she saw every movie made. So
They arrest him. They start questioning him while he's in jail.
yeah,
They have nothing. He's denying everything he can as far as the crime in murdering his wife. They know nothing about Towers.
yeah, they know that he's
Was the last to see her, and that's that.
right, but they don't have any evidence, any body, anything like that, which obviously makes it harder to prosecute a case.
But then that brings us to March 12th of 1984. Jury selection begins.
Yep. So he goes through the whole trial. Everybody.
Now let's note on something here. He's in court. They haven't found a body. They haven't found any real evidence.
Yeah, no
This
weapon.
is all on the babysitter coming back
Yep.
and saying, this is what happened, and probably the gut instinct of a community.
Right. And they go through this whole trial. At the end of it, the jury deliberated for a total of 9 hours, which is a pretty normal amount of time for a solo murder case.
Yeah.
But they returned a verdict of guilty in the 4th degree, which today would be
Manslaughter.
basically a manslaughter
Yeah.
charge. Yeah.
And I think this comes with a maximum penalty of 10 years.
10 years. Yeah.
That's
He
it?
did get the maximum.
Yes.
Wow.
Yep. Now, he's still a busy guy, this Jimmy Hicks. He marries Linda Marquis in the Thomaston prison in Thomaston, Maine.
Chicks love prisoners.
Chicks love tough guys.
So she wasn't a prisoner there.
No.
Okay.
She's probably a pen pal. But she asserts his innocence nonetheless. And according to the tragedy in the North Woods, they've known each other, well, prior to that, they'd known each other for 7 years. So they were probably friends when they were kids. And she was like, oh, I always had a thing for him. Start writing him.
Yeah.
People do stupid shit.
Hey, Ted Bundy got married
Yeah.
on trial, so.
Now in 1990, Hicks is released from prison, and he was described as displaying role model behavior. Of course. Of course, he wants to get out.
Yeah, right.
And so this will take us to the early 90s, Jake, about 91, 92.
Yeah, James Hicks meets Karen Gomes.
Through his brother Steve, I think is how we met her.
Don't
Yeah.
introduce any women to Jimmy Hicks.
Bad idea.
Bad idea.
Steve was married to her sister Melinda, and James and Karen start. What?
No, it's not even you. I think that note's wrong. Steve was married to her sister Melinda.
Yeah, Karen's sister.
Okay,
Yeah.
never mind. I thought they were, insinuating some lesbian
Jason,
shit.
you're 0 beers deep. Come on, man.
But I misread it. For some reason, I was thinking I read like a woman's name who was married to her sister. And I was like, who's married to their own sister? Like, I was just confused for a
This
minute.
is Newport.
You didn't read it wrong. I just misheard it wrong. I was like, what the fuck?
Okay, now I lost my place.
Just,
Take it from the top.
yeah.
Okay, so Karen and James get together. Karen's sister is dating Steve, right? Is that how that went?
Yes, Karen's sister's
Okay.
dating Steve. This is just a bunch of friends.
Yeah,
Basically, it's kinda how I gather
Yeah,
this.
this is. It doesn't sound strange, but it kind of is, and it's hard to read. So James and Linda file for divorce during this time. Following that divorce, James marries Karen, probably immediately, like an idiot,
I'm sure.
and then the couple moves in with her parents.
restarting the whole pattern.
Let's say
over again.
another Jimmy Hicks trend.
The couple then separates, and
3 times.
3 times. What?
Yeah,
Just
one of
pick
those.
one. Either you're with it or you're not. Anyway.
This guy's an asshole that gets way too much poontang.
Right.
That's what I'm getting with this guy here. So they kind of have one of those kind of relationships. They're on and off, and then they're off again.
Yeah, and then he meets another girl in 92,
Yeah.
Louise Robertson.
And they have a daughter.
However, a blood test confirmed otherwise.
Really. So what this is that
Yeah, he denied paternity.
yeah. Okay.
Like a loser.
Right.
So this guy,
Ooh.
this guy's all over the place. In 94, the affair between James and Louise ends. Oh, shucks. Louise,
Oh no! Oh no!
Louise claims that Hicks never said anything about his first wife or acknowledged having 4 other children.
Makes sense.
Makes sense. That's not really. Hey, you know what? My first wife, she's fucking dead, and I got 4 kids. Who wants to date me?
Yeah, and any research into his name would probably bring up Geraldine Towers as well. So.
Who's still being investigated. We're in 1994 in the story here, and she's still being investigated as as a person that's disappeared.
Yeah.
I believe even Jake, the police are still interviewing him.
They're interviewing some ex-wives and girlfriends of his.
And they're still questioning him from time to time.
From time to time, yeah.
See what they can get, yeah.
They contacted Vance Tibbetts as well, who was actually Geraldine's brother and was in prison at the same time as James.
As James
and
Hicks.
I guess Vance Tibbetts actually confronted James in prison a couple times about it.
Yeah, because everybody's always believed that he had something to do with Towers' disappearance.
Right.
So while he's in prison, from what I understand, he didn't just confront him. He was like harassing him.
Yeah, he was honestly ready to kill him, but he wanted answers first.
He was making his entire prison life miserable. And this was the kind of guy that was in prison for attempted murder.
Of a cop, I think.
So you don't want to fuck with Vance Tibbetts.
Yeah,
no.
he exchanged gunshots with a cop.
Somebody to be afraid of. But Hicks, the entire time, even to Vance, had denied any kind of involvement with Geraldine at the Gateway Lounge.
Right.
Now, also in 1994, this is when he meets Lynn Ann Willette. They start work. She begins, and she's working at the Twin City Motel in Brewer, again outside of Bangor.
Right. I think that's where James worked.
I was going to say they both work there as well.
Yeah.
And he's a quick mover, Jake. This is in 1995. Hicks moves in with into Willette's apartment.
Well, at least he didn't move into her mom's house.
That's right.
He's stepping it up, man.
He stepped it up.
This guy, he's a mover. What goes on in August?
In August of '95,
Yes.
He starts to feel that Tibbetts is stalking him and files a complaint against Tibbetts in the Brewer Police Department. The case is turned over to the Maine State Police.
That's weird, huh?
Yeah, and this was where the story gets the best because Detective Zamboni.
I love that name.
Love that name.
Detective Zamboni of the Maine State Police interviews Hicks about the possibility of a polygraph.
Hey, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Not that we like that, not that we necessarily believe him, but this guy needs a polygraph.
Yeah. And he's reluctant to take it at first and suggests doing the test another time. So,
hey, let's do it when I'm a little less guilty.
right.
25 years from now.
Yeah, hit me up when I'm dead.
Yeah.
Now, if something ends up happening with Lynn Willette, now it's kind of unusual. She's murdered, but he does a real good job of cleaning this up because it's more of like a vanished kind of thing.
Right.
And this happens also about the middle of 1996.
Yep.
Yeah. Sometime at the end of May.
Though what it's believed is that he did strangle her in the hotel. That's a very clean way of doing it. Probably strangled her, threw her in the vehicle, and then disposed of her.
Yep.
Well, I guess we'll get into where he disposed of them a little later. But what he ends up doing is, he goes through his normal bullshit where he strangles her, but then he also contacts the Brewer police to report her as being missing. Hicks claims that he doesn't know where she's been, that he hasn't done any harm to her. But his alibis are kind of suspicious because everything's the same. There's been 3 women in his life.
With your past, no.
Right. Well, that's just what I'm getting at.
Something's not
3
right.
women in your life disappear. You always have the same kind of story. One of them you've already been to prison for the manslaughter of.
Right.
That's what I was just gonna say. I forgot what I was gonna say, but at this point, he killed 3 people, but this killing spree has lasted 20 years almost at this point.
And these are all women that I believe the stories that they're going to leave him or they want nothing to do with him, and he kind of loses his...
Yeah, he doesn't seem like he handles rejection very well.
Right, and this is what happens. Now, a few days later, Lynn's car is discovered off the 95 at a truck stop in Herman, which is south of Bangor?
I'm not sure.
I believe it's just
Take your word for
I think
it.
it's just a little south of Bangor. Now, after interviewing numerous people who knew both James and Lynn, police have not discovered any evidence to suggest Lynn is dead. Now, again, she's just vanished. What's been assumed is that she was strangled in the hotel, but
Right.
he's done a real good job, like I said earlier, of getting rid of her.
Yeah.
It's reported that James moved into another woman's apartment months after Lynn disappeared. So he gets around.
This dude must have the magic stick or something.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, this guy, he's something else. Look up James Hicks. You can find him in the Warren, Maine State Prison in Warren. So he's with another female, but the investigation continues, into what this guy's doing and the disappearance of the other ones.
Yeah.
So in September of 96, he moves in with an 18-year-old girlfriend by the name of Brandy Mayo.
Pass the mayo.
Detective Zamboni comes in again.
Okay.
We got Mayo and Zamboni all over this.
Detective Zamboni comes in again and interviews Mayo's mother in Maine and discovers that strangers have reported James abusing her. So he's on a pattern again with violence towards women with his new girlfriend.
On a pattern, and things are stacking up against him, Jake.
Speaking of patterns, guess what? In 97, they have a fucking kid.
Hey!
At this point, it's just turning into a joke. It's kind of...
It literally is just a cycle over and over again.
It really is.
And he moves to another wonderful town with his girlfriend in Bangor in 1998.
He marries her.
Ooh.
Part of the plan.
Part of the plan. Everything's come full circle again for Jimmy Jake. Jimmy Jake. So where are we at in 99?
We're halfway through 99. The FBI's Critical Incident Response Group assigned to the...
There's a lot of big words here.
All right, so about halfway through 99, the FBI starts getting their nose in it, and they start to put things together. They're starting to create a big case about what's going on in his life, basically. All these women disappearing, some of them dead, some of them missing.
You guys think that Jimmy's feeling the heat at this point? I mean, you got the FBI coming down on him. You got local and state police looking into him. I'm sure he's being questioned all the time. Members in the community are looking at him.
Yeah, he can't be, Brewer's favorite son.
No. So what do you do when you've done a bunch of bad shit?
You break the cycle and you leave the state.
That's right. You get the fuck out. And you move to Loveland, Texas. I mean, that's a great place to go. It's not quite California where a lot of our great killers go.
And the best part about it is he's such a good guy that they left their daughter behind for the state to take care of.
Beautiful.
And they took off to Texas.
And speaking of deadbeat parents and moving across the country, Justin DiPietro needs to come out.
Yeah, right.
Just saying.
There's
anyway,
another one that
side
can come
note.
back. Now, James and Brandy have another child in Texas.
They like this one, though. They'll keep it.
Yeah, we'll
that's
keep
very
this one.
nice of them.
Now, what's interesting is that, and again, like we said, all this is mounting up on James Hicks in Maine. The police department
in
Maine place a friendly phone call to the Loveland Police Department, just basically saying, hey, look, one of our assholes just moved into your community. We just want to give you a heads up. This is what this guy is supposedly accused of. And from what I understand, that phone call painted him as a serial killer.
Yeah, and they at that point, the state basically decided to act pretty quickly. And after discovering that they had a child in Texas, the state of Texas recommended that the state remove the baby from the home almost immediately.
And is that what happened?
It is actually what happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they, kudos to the officer that called down in Texas to do that. Because to be honest, the best thing that James Hicks did was leave his kid to DHS in Maine, and then the other child being taken from them in Texas.
I mean, from what it seems like, he doesn't have a relationship with any of his 15 kids. So.
He's a selfish person. He does what he wants and to whoever he wants.
And to that note, they may not want to have anything to do with him either.
I'm sure at this point, no. James Hicks is back to his great work on April 8th of 2000, Jake.
Yeah, he's working as a handyman at the time, and he gets in contact with a customer by the name of June Moss.
She's an elderly woman, I believe.
Yep. Hicks had been working for her at her house, and she wrote him a check that was to a closed account, supposedly. June tells Hicks to come back to her house, and she'll give him cash or give him another check, something. He gets there, and he points a gun to her head and threatens to kill her. Hicks forces the elderly lady to write a check for $1,250, not $12.50, and to give him the title to her car.
Wow.
That's cheap.
Yeah, right. That's the cheapest car ever. He also forces her to write a suicide note and drink an entire bottle of cough syrup. He is in the rear of her home, and she manages to escape to a neighbor's house, and the neighbor calls the cops.
Now, can I touch on that bottle of cough syrup? I don't know if you guys, from your readings.
What flavor do you think it was?
Well, it sounded like it was a giant jug full of cough syrup.
I mean, I would think so because I've seen the way Lil Wayne can put it down. I don't think one bottle.
Yeah, he almost died.
No, it looked like, not looked like, from the woman that this is happening to, she said it was a giant bottle. Like, it sounded like he...
Industrial size.
Or like
everything
he bought
bigger in
several
Texas, so.
Like
Right.
he bought several bottles of cough syrup and poured it into like a half-gallon jug and was like, drink this shit.
So.
Anyways,
Yeah.
sorry to cut you off on this beautiful story.
No, it's okay. So police get there and arrest him.
Good. Yeah, and she ends up going to the hospital for the overdose of cough syrup. She gets treated for
Acetaminophen overdose.
and she's let out. But James Hicks is not let out. Hicks is taken to the Lubbock County Jail and charged with aggravated robbery of an elderly person. This is a very serious crime in Texas. His bond is set at $250,000. And
Well, I'm sure he's just got that sitting in his pocket.
I mean, he should have saved it while he's living with all of his in-laws.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
now, you know what? This kind of a crime, this is good. This kind of a crime in Texas, this faces potential for life in prison.
You don't want to get caught with a dime bag in Texas.
Yeah, that's right. Don't get caught with a pot seed on your fucking rug in Texas.
Yeah, no.
You know what? He had a gun. He did force her to drink something. So you know what? You could have killed her. Life in jail is what he's facing. So he sits in a Texas jail for a while.
Not a fun place.
Not a fun place. And the state police, the Maine state police, know that this is going on, and I'm sure the FBI know this is going on. You know what they say? They don't mention anything to James Hicks right away. They say, you know what? We're going to let him sit in some Texas-style jail and see what it's like there.
Yeah. And then Detective Zamboni gets involved, actually gets a hold of Hicks' brother, Steve, and kind of puts a bug in his ear, like, hey, you should talk to your brother and ask if he'd rather do his prison time in Texas or Maine, because we have some information that might be able to help with that.
Yeah.
So we're looking for some information.
Yeah, in fact, what they were looking for was information in regards to the disappearance of Geraldine Towers and Lynn Willette.
Yep.
It's so this would save him from being in jail in Texas and take him to probably what would be a much safer sentencing here in Maine.
Right. He basically, Detective Zamboni, basically tells him for 100% cooperation, he can make the deal to get him to Maine. And I think George W. was still the governor of Texas at that time, and him and the Maine governor Angus King made a deal to let him serve his time in Maine as long as he was willing to share information on the murders of Willette and Towers and try to provide the bodies for the police.
Hicks writes a letter to Zamboni stating he will only cooperate if he can be extradited to Maine and have things go his way. So he's...
This isn't Burger King. That's not how that works.
Well, you know what? They're willing to work with the guy because shortly thereafter, Hicks confesses to the murder of Lynn Willette in 1996 while he's in Lubbock, Texas.
Yep.
And offers to lead Detective Zamboni to Willette's remains.
Right.
He had a nice area where he would put them. I think is what we'll end up finding here. Zamboni then informs Hicks that he is investigating 5 murders instead of 3. I mean, there's other things that have happened in the area that he's not necessarily related to. But if you can give us any information on these, did you do these? Do you know anything about it? That kind of stuff.
Right.
And as a strategy to receive information about the other 2 victims, Hicks then admits to killing Towers and his first wife, Jenny, which unfortunately he could not receive any more time for because he was already tried.
Right.
So
he did get 2... When I went to trial, he did get 2 55-year sentences in Maine. I think he got another small charge as well, 25 years or something for...
What ends up happening is when he goes to trial here in Maine, prior to him going to trial, he does actually show the investigators where the remains are. They end up finding not all of the remains, but there's an area where he brought all 3 bodies. Mm-hmm. In the case of Lynn Willette, I believe they were able to find everything. They were able to find most of Geraldine Towers, and I think they only found the skull of his wife.
Yeah, that's what I heard as well.
But this was like an area kind of deep up in the county, which is the northerner, most of a northern part of Maine, off of a logging trail, kind of a thing. This goes to court. Of course, he doesn't
fight his extradition at all.
Of course, and this was a quick trial. He ends up getting 2 life sentences, Jake, plus 55 years for the offense that he had done in Lubbock, Texas.
Right.
What's the point of the 55 years on top of that? I mean, you already have 2 life sentences.
I know what you're saying. In some cases, it's like, you know what, we're going to have two. We're going to impose 2 fines on you. That way, if one gets dropped.
Exactly.
In this case here, I think it's more to say, you know what, you actually fucking did this to an old lady, and she deserves her 55 years for the abuse you did.
Right.
Because you know what? Otherwise, it would be like, here's your 2 life sentences, and fuck the drugging and robbery that you did to her.
Right.
Which isn't right. So that's where I think that kind of comes in with that. If anybody's interested in visiting James Hicks, you can find him pretty easily.
Yeah, that's on the top of my fucking bucket list.
In Warren. And
let me get right the fuck on that.
Maine State Prison. Now, on a side note, we have a friend who we had spoken to earlier today who knew Jimmy Hicks while he was in prison, and I had a moment to talk to him about that. They were not cellmates together. They were in the same housing unit kind of thing. And as much as you hear, you know, and I've researched this about him, you hear he's such a nasty guy and all this and that's going on. I brought the name up to my buddy, and he says, "Oh, that guy, he was a very funny guy." I was like, "What? I didn't expect to hear that." So, Jake, what do you think? We got James Hicks done and in the books.
Don't ask me what I think. I'm fucking tired.
This guy, this is
I've been struggling to stay awake all day.
He's a wreck. And next, Jason, what do you think, man? What do we got here?
What is next?
Well, I don't know. You're next, buddy. What do you think? James Hicks, what do we got?
James Hicks.
What's your wrap up on him?
Well, they get everything you deserve, that's for sure. It just basically seems like the police unfortunately gave him a license to kill. They didn't investigate any of his murders for almost 30 years. So,
well, I think the bottom line is that, in like a lot of cases that we've done, a lot of times they're kids, but even when they're adults like this, when the family is saying, you know, something happened. I know what you're saying, because the police say, well, it's probably a runaway. But when the family says, this is not a runaway, something definitely happened to...
Yeah, people need to listen.
The police should at least look into it. I mean, what are the cops in Newport, Maine doing?
Yeah.
They're not that busy. The damn Tim Hortons is closed now.
Yeah.
They didn't have them then. What's going on? You know what I mean? I mean, you're not doing anything.
3-man task force, maybe? I'm not sure.
At least look into this shit just as practice. You know, because you never know. Because sometimes something like this happens and it's for real, like in this case. I guess this takes us to our social media. You can find us on Facebook at Stories from the Shed, Instagram at Stories from the Shed Podcast, YouTube, Stories from the Shed Podcast. My favorite one, Twitter.
My favorite one.
Jake's least favorite, I guess.
My absolute favorite one.
Stories from Shed.
I only like the Russian accent.
Yeah.
Everything else about Twitter sucks.
We're not going to go over iMessage because we're not going to check it. Definitely shoot us an email at sftspodcast@gmail.com.
We should just remove the iMessage right from the note.
The hell with it. Love the emails, love the feedback, and looking forward to recording a next episode for you for the following week. Thanks for listening, guys.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks for coming on, Jason.
Anytime.
We'll see you soon. Bye.